Hello friend, it is Henry. Welcome back. I am so glad that you have found your way here to me tonight. You have had a long day, haven't you? The world outside your window has been moving so quickly, spinning at a dizzying pace, demanding your attention, your energy, and your time. It is a loud world we live in, filled with the constant hum of machinery, the endless glowing screens, and the heavy weight of modern expectations. But all of that is over now. The sun has fallen below the horizon, the day has ended, and the time for working, worrying, and rushing has completely passed. You have done enough. You have been enough. Right now, in this exact moment, there is absolutely nothing left for you to accomplish. Your only job tonight is to rest. So, I invite you to get as comfortable as you possibly can. Dim the lights in your room, or turn them off entirely, allowing the gentle, comforting darkness to fill the space around you. Pull your blankets up a little higher, tucking them under your chin, and feel the soft, familiar weight of the fabric settling over your shoulders. Notice how the mattress beneath you rises up to support the natural curve of your spine. It is holding you safely. You are secure here. You are in your sanctuary, a place where the noise of the outside world simply cannot reach you. Before we begin our journey tonight, let us take a few moments to simply be still. Let us prepare your mind and your body for a deep, restorative sleep. I want you to bring your attention to your physical form, starting at the very bottom of your feet. Notice any tension you might be holding in your toes, your arches, or your heels. Perhaps you have been standing or walking for hours today. Acknowledge that effort and then simply let it go. Imagine a warm, soothing wave of relaxation washing over your feet, melting away the stiffness. Allow that gentle warmth to travel upward, moving slowly into your calves, your knees, and your thighs. Feel your legs becoming heavy, sinking deeper and deeper into the soft cotton sheets beneath you. Let that same comforting heaviness rise into your hips and your lower back, an area where we so often carry the burdens of our day. Release the muscles there. Let your stomach soften. Feel your chest expanding gently with every natural breath you take, rising and falling like the slow, rhythmic tide of a calm ocean. Now, bring that awareness to your shoulders. We spend so much of our time with our shoulders pulled up toward our ears, bracing ourselves against the stress of the day. Drop them now. Let them fall heavy and flat against your mattress. Feel the tension draining out of your neck, down your arms, through your elbows, your wrists, and all the way out through your fingertips. Your arms are perfectly relaxed, resting comfortably at your sides or gently folded across your waist. Finally, focus on your face. Unclench your jaw. Let your tongue fall away from the roof of your mouth. Smooth out the space between your eyebrows and allow your eyes to gently close if they haven't already. Let the tiny muscles around your eyes completely surrender to the darkness. Now that your body is resting, let us focus on your breath. You do not need to force it or change its natural rhythm. Just observe it. Feel the cool, refreshing air entering through your nose, filling your lungs and nourishing your body. And as you exhale, imagine that you are breathing out all the lingering worries, all the rushing thoughts, and all the residual noise of the modern world. Inhale the quiet, exhale the stress, inhale the peace, exhale the exhaustion. With every single breath, you are sinking further and further into a state of profound tranquility. Your room is quiet. The shadows in the corners are soft and still. As you lie there, feeling completely safe and weightless, I want you to imagine the walls of your bedroom slowly beginning to fade. The familiar shapes of your furniture, the ceiling above you, the door to your room, they are all losing their solid edges. They are dissolving into a gentle, swirling grey mist. This mist is not cold or frightening. It is thick, soft, and deeply comforting, like a heavy woolen blanket wrapping around your mind. The modern world is entirely gone now. All the concrete, The glass, the electricity, and the endless rush of time have vanished into the grey. You are floating in a peaceful void, a quiet space between the world of today and the world of the past. Time is a curious thing, friend. We often feel so trapped by the urgency of our present moment, believing that the way we live now is the only way. But the past is always there, waiting patiently for us. It is a quiet place, a place where life moved at the glacial, beautiful speed of the changing seasons. A place where the only lights were the sun, the moon, and the warm dancing glow of a hearth fire. Slowly, the grey mist surrounding you begins to crystallize. The air changes, taking on a crisp, clean purity that instantly clears your mind. The grey fades, replaced by the deep, bruised indigo of a Nordic twilight. You find yourself standing in the middle of a vast ancient forest, far back in time. The sky above is a magnificent gradient of charcoal and dark blue, completely untouched by the glowing light pollution of modern cities. And falling from this majestic sky is the snow. It is not a harsh or angry storm. It is a gentle, mesmerizing blizzard. The snowflakes are enormous, feathery, and perfectly formed. They drift down from the heavens with a hypnotic slowness, twirling and dancing in the dim, atmospheric light before finally coming to rest on the earth. You begin to walk through this ancient landscape, but you realize immediately that there is no effort in your stride. You do not feel the heavy, dragging exhaustion that so often burdens us in our waking hours. Instead, you feel completely weightless, as if you are gliding just above the surface of the deep, untouched powder. You are a quiet observer of history, a phantom walking through the winter of a forgotten century. You feel no biting cold, no freezing wind against your skin. You only feel the imaginary, refreshing chill of a stray snowflake landing softly on your warm cheek and melting away into nothingness. It is a sensation that makes you feel incredibly alive, yet completely relaxed. With every step you take, the fresh snow compresses beneath your boots with a soft, rhythmic sound. A gentle hush, hush, hush. It is the only sound in this vast, snowy wilderness. The wind here is not a vicious gale. It is a slow, sweeping breath that moves gently through the tops of the towering evergreen trees, shaking loose small dustings of white powder that fall to the forest floor like powdered sugar. You walk deeper into the woods, surrounded by the towering, dark silhouettes of ancient pine and spruce trees. Their massive boughs sag heavily under the weight of the snow, creating natural arches and tunnels of white and dark green. The silence of the forest is immense and profound. It is not an empty silence, but a heavy, insulated quiet that absorbs all thought and worry. You can smell the scent of the forest air. It is incredible, a mixture of crisp ozone, frozen pine needles, and the deep, earthy aroma of dormant soil resting under its thick winter blanket. You take a deep breath of this clean, historical air, and it fills you with a deep sense of belonging and peace. You are miles away from anyone, entirely isolated in this beautiful winter landscape. Yet you do not feel lonely. You feel a deep, comforting solitude. Through the dense, falling curtain of white snowflakes, a subtle change in the environment catches your eye. Far ahead, breaking through the deep blue and grey tones of the winter twilight, a colour begins to emerge. It is a deep, rich, glowing amber. It is the colour of safety. As you continue to glide effortlessly through the snow, the source of this beautiful golden light begins to reveal itself. The trees begin to thin out, opening up into a large, flat clearing, and there, resting in the centre of the snowy expanse, is a structure of immense, awe-inspiring proportions. It is a traditional Viking longhouse, rising from the earth like a sleeping giant. You pause for a moment to simply look at it. The longhouse is incredibly long and low to the ground, designed to weather the harshest of winters. Its massive, sloping roof is completely covered in a thick, insulating layer of white snow, blending it perfectly into the surrounding landscape. The walls are constructed from enormous, hand-hewn timber logs, dark and weathered by countless seasons, packed tightly with earth and moss to keep the freezing air at bay. But what draws your attention most are the seams of the building. Between the heavy wooden planks of the door and through small ventilation spaces under the eaves, that glorious, golden firelight spills out into the dark, painting the surrounding snow in warm shades of orange and yellow. As you slowly close the distance between the forest edge and the Longhouse, the smell of the air begins to change. The crisp scent of the frozen pines is joined by a new, profoundly comforting aroma. It is the rich, heavy smell of ancient wood smoke. You can smell the burning of aged pine pitch, the dry warmth of seasoned oak, and a very faint, savoury hint of roasted meats and melting beeswax drifting from within. It is the smell of humanity, of survival, and of absolute warmth in the middle of a frozen world. The scent wraps around you, inviting you forward, pulling you out of the twilight and toward the sanctuary. You reach the front of the Longhouse. The sheer scale of the building is even more impressive up close. The overhanging roof shelters you from the falling snow, creating a small, dry space right in front of the entrance. You stand before the massive main door. It is built from thick, vertical planks of solid oak, bound together by heavy strips of dark forged iron. The wood is rough and textured, carved with faint, ancient symbols that have been smoothed and worn down by centuries of hands passing through this very spot. You reach out your hand and place your fingers against the large, wrought iron ring that serves as a handle. The metal is cool to the touch, but not freezing, as if the heat from inside the building has seeped all the way through the thick oak to greet you. You wrap your hand around the iron ring and press your thumb against the heavy latch. It depresses with a satisfying, metallic click that echoes softly in the snowy quiet. You pull the great oak door toward you. It moves slowly, the sheer weight of the timber requiring a gentle, deliberate pull. The heavy, hand-forged iron hinges let out a low, deep, structural groan that speaks to their incredible age and their enduring strength. As the door swings outward, you are instantly met with a profound, enveloping wall of dry, magnificent heat. It washes over your face and your shoulders, instantly melting away the imaginary chill of the winter forest. The contrast is startling and deeply wonderful. Outside is the endless, blue twilight of the freezing Nordic blizzard, but inside this doorway the air is thick, rich, and vibrating with golden warmth. The light from within is almost blinding for a brief second, a brilliant, dancing display of firelight that casts long, moving shadows against the wooden walls. You step forward, crossing the thick wooden threshold and entering the interior of the Longhouse. Your boots step off the snow and onto the hard, packed earth of the floor. You turn around slowly, facing the dark, snowy landscape one last time. You watch the large snowflakes drifting down in the blue light, feeling the gentle push of the winter wind. And then, with both hands, you grab the inner handle of the heavy oak door and push it closed. It moves steadily, the thick wood blocking out the view of the forest inch by inch, until finally the door meets the frame. It shuts with a deep, heavy, resonant thud. The latch falls into place with a final, secure clack. In that single, satisfying sound of the door closing, the storm outside is completely erased. The muffled howling of the wind is instantly silenced, reduced to nothing more than a faint, distant memory against the incredible thickness of the Longhouse walls. The cold is gone. The modern world is gone. You are sealed inside this cavernous, ancient sanctuary. You are surrounded by the smell of wood smoke, the dry heat of the fire, and the incredible, enduring strength of the wooden beams above you. You have arrived, and you are entirely, completely safe. You stand for a long moment perfectly still, allowing the resonance of the heavy oak door to settle into the structure of the building. The deep, percussive thud of the iron latch falling into place seems to vibrate through the soles of your boots, travelling up from the threshold and into the very bones of the Longhouse. With that final, definitive sound, the frantic energy of the blizzard outside is instantly severed. It is as if a thick, impenetrable blanket has been thrown over the entire world. The sharp, biting whistle of the freezing wind, which only moments ago felt so vast and commanding, is immediately reduced to a dull, distant hum. It is a soft, rhythmic vibration that presses gently against the incredibly thick, insulated walls of the Longhouse. But it cannot break through. The storm has been entirely defeated by the sheer mass of the hand-hewn timbers, the layers of tightly packed earth and moss in the crevices, and the heavy roof of turf and snow overhead. You are entirely sealed away, cocooned within an architectural marvel designed for the sole purpose of preserving warmth and protecting life against the endless, dark Nordic winter. The absolute safety of the space washes over you in a slow, comforting wave, relaxing the muscles in your neck and shoulders that you didn't even realize you were bracing against the imaginary cold of the forest. Slowly, your eyes begin to adjust to the profound change in the light. Outside, the world was painted in the cool, bruised hues of a deep blue twilight, but inside this cavernous space, everything is bathed in a rich, vibrant, and incredibly warm amber glow. You blink slowly, allowing your pupils to expand, and as they do, the sheer, breathtaking scale of the interior begins to reveal itself. The Longhouse is magnificently vast, a sweeping, elongated hall that stretches out far before you. It feels less like a simple dwelling and more like a great, protective wooden cathedral, or perhaps the inverted hull of a massive, ancient ship that has been brought safely to shore to shelter its crew from the storm. The space is vast, yet it does not feel empty or overwhelming. Instead, the heavy shadows that gather in the far corners and high up in the rafters create an atmosphere of profound, intimate coziness. The darkness here is not something to be feared. It is a soft, heavy curtain that wraps around the edges of the room, drawing all of the focus, all of the life, and all of the comforting light toward the center of the hall. As you take your first, slow steps away from the entryway and deeper into the room, you become aware of the ground beneath your feet. It is not made of modern, polished wood or cold stone, but of earth. It is hard-packed, ancient soil that has been smoothed and compressed by countless footsteps over many, many years. It feels incredibly solid and grounding beneath your boots, connecting you directly to the steady, enduring foundation of the earth itself. Scattered generously across the surface of this earthen floor is a thick layer of dried rush grass and fragrant pine needles. With every slow, deliberate step you take, the dry needles crush gently beneath your weight, producing a soft, satisfying rustle that echoes quietly in the large room. The crushing of the needles releases a sudden, brilliant burst of scent into the air. It is the sharp, clean, resinous aroma of the forest, beautifully preserved and brought indoors, mingling perfectly with the dense, surrounding warmth. The heat in this room is a living, breathing entity. It is not the artificial, dry air of modern heating, but a rich, heavy, and deeply radiant warmth that seems to seep directly into your skin, warming you from the outside in. This magnificent heat originates from the very heart of the Longhouse, the central feature around which this entire architectural wonder was built. Down the center of the long, earthen floor runs the great hearth. It is a long, trench-like fire pit, beautifully lined with massive, smooth river stones that have been cracked, blackened, and hardened by years of continuous, searing heat. The fire burning within it is a masterpiece of survival and comfort. It is not a small, flickering flame, but a long, steady, and brilliantly orchestrated series of fires stretching down the hall, providing life-sustaining warmth to every corner of the immense room. You find yourself drawn toward the center of the hall, walking slowly, parallel to the long fire. The heat radiates powerfully against your side, a comforting pressure that pushes away the very memory of the winter chill. You stop and simply stare into the flames, mesmerized by their slow, hypnotic dance. The fire is built from massive, thick logs of seasoned oak and old pine, logs so large they look as though they could burn for weeks without turning to ash. At the base of the hearth, the wood has broken down into a deep, incredibly dense bed of glowing embers. These coals pulse with a blinding, white-hot intensity at their core, fading out into vibrant shades of cherry red and deep, velvet orange. Above the embers, the flames leap and twist in the air, moving with a lazy, fluid grace. They are beautiful ribbons of gold, yellow, and occasional flashes of vivid, sap-fueled blue, all reaching upward toward the ceiling, desperate to catch the draft. The sound of the fire is a symphony of absolute tranquility. It is a constant, low, roaring whisper, punctuated by the occasional, deeply satisfying sounds of the burning wood. You hear the sharp, sudden crack of a pine knot popping in the heat, sending a tiny, brilliant shower of orange sparks spiraling upward into the dark. You hear the soft, rhythmic hiss of natural sap bubbling out of the rough bark, turning to steam in an instant. And beneath it all, you hear the slow, heavy settling of the massive logs as they shift slightly in the white ash, adjusting their weight as the fire consumes them. It is a sound that humans have gathered around, found comfort in, and fallen asleep to for thousands upon thousands of years. It speaks directly to a primal part of your mind, a deep, ancient instinct that recognizes the sound of a well-tended fire and understands that you are completely, undeniably safe. You tilt your head back, following the path of the rising sparks and the twisting ribbons of smoke. The smoke rises in a slow, elegant column, drawing your eyes up into the immense, vaulted ceiling of the Longhouse. The architecture above you is breathtaking in its raw, functional beauty. Massive, hand-hewn crossbeams of solid oak span the width of the hall, supporting the incredible weight of the roof and the heavy blanket of snow above it. These beams are not perfectly straight, milled lumber. They retain the natural, organic curves of the great trees they were carved from, smoothed entirely by hand with heavy iron axes. The joints where the timbers meet are masterfully crafted, locked together with thick wooden pegs rather than iron nails, allowing the massive structure to flex and breathe with the changing pressures of the heavy winter winds. Over countless seasons, the smoke from the central hearth has risen up into these rafters, coating the ancient wood in a thick, smooth layer of pitch-black soot. This layer of soot has cured the wood, preserving it perfectly against the damp and the rot, turning the ceiling into a dark, glossy canopy that beautifully reflects the dancing golden light of the fire below. The air near the ceiling is hazy and thick, but the ventilation is expertly designed. High above, near the very peak of the roof, are small, rectangular smoke holes left open to the night sky. Through these openings, the smoke lazily escapes, drawn out by the cold draft of the blizzard outside. Occasionally, a sudden gust of the muffled wind will push against the roof, sending a tiny, swirling eddy of fresh, freezing air down through the smoke vent. You can't feel the cold from where you stand, but you can see its effect as the thick column of smoke suddenly dances and twists, caught in the invisible current before resuming its slow, upward climb. It is a beautiful, silent interaction between the sanctuary of the Longhouse and the wild, untamed nature of the storm outside. As you continue your slow, quiet walk down the length of the hall, your attention is drawn away from the fire and toward the massive wooden pillars that line the central aisle. These great columns are the primary supports for the heavy roof, spaced at regular intervals down the earthen floor. You approach one of them, stepping just outside the immediate, intense heat of the fire. The pillar is enormous, a single, towering trunk of an ancient tree that has been stripped of its bark and smoothed down. But it has not been left plain. The surface of the wood is covered in breathtaking, incredibly detailed carvings. You reach out your hand, moving with the slow, unhurried pace of the evening, and gently press your fingertips against the wood. The timber is beautifully warm to the touch, having absorbed the radiant heat of the hearth all day long. As you trace your fingers over the surface, you feel the deep, sweeping grooves and the raised, polished ridges of the ancient craftsmanship. The carvings depict an intricate, endless weave of Celtic-style knotwork, complex geometric patterns that loop and cross over themselves in a mesmerizing display of infinite continuity. Intertwined within the knots are the stylized shapes of mythical beasts, long, elegant serpents, and deep-rooted trees, all carved with a profound respect for the natural world. The wood has been polished to a smooth, glassy finish, not by modern varnishes, but by the natural oils of countless hands brushing past it over generations, and by the subtle coating of the wood smoke. In the flickering, ambient light of the fire, the deep grooves of the carvings are thrown into dark shadow, while the raised surfaces catch the golden light, making the intricate designs appear almost three-dimensional, as if the carved serpents are slowly twisting and breathing in the warmth of the hall. You stand beside the ancient pillar, letting your hand rest against the smooth carved wood, and you simply breathe. The atmospheric scents of the Longhouse are deeply layered and incredibly soothing. The foundation of the smell is, of course, the rich, heavy wood smoke, but as you stand still and close your eyes, you begin to pull apart the other, more subtle fragrances woven into the air of the room. Hanging from the lower crossbeams near the edges of the hall are thick, tied bundles of dried herbs and wild summer grasses, suspended upside down to cure in the dry heat. You can smell the faint, dusty sweetness of dried chamomile, the earthy sharpness of yarrow, and the deep, savoury aroma of wild thyme. These scents evoke a memory of warm, sunlit meadows, beautifully contrasting with the deep winter reality outside. Beneath the scent of the herbs, there is another, richer aroma, drifting from the darker corners of the Longhouse. It is the deep, sweet, incredibly earthy smell of fermented honey and ancient wood. In the shadows, resting on heavy timber cradles, are large, bound wooden casks, holding the household supply of mead. The faint, sweet aroma of the honey wine seems to seep right through the porous wood of the barrels, adding a warm, intoxicating note to the heavy air. Combined with the smell of the pine needles, crushed beneath your boots, the dry earth, and the smouldering oak logs, the scent of the Longhouse is nothing short of a perfectly crafted, historical perfume. It is a smell that instantly lowers your heart rate, signalling to your body that all the day's work is done. The stores are full, the fire is lit, and there is absolutely nothing left to worry about. Turning your back to the central fire, you look toward the outer walls of the Longhouse. Running along the length of both sides of the hall are wide, raised wooden platforms. These platforms serve as the living, working, and sleeping areas for the inhabitants, elevated slightly above the earthen floor to keep them entirely free from any drafts that might slip beneath the door. The platforms are wide and incredibly sturdy, built from thick, flat planks of overlapping timber. Right now, in the quiet depth of the winter evening, these spaces are transformed into an absolute haven of comfort and rest. You walk slowly toward one of these raised benches, your boots moving softly over the scattered rush grass. As you draw closer, you can see that the wooden surface of the platform is completely covered in a deeply inviting, mountainous layer of textiles and furs. The sheer amount of heavy, insulating material is a testament to the supreme importance of warmth in this harsh climate. You reach the edge of the platform and reach out to touch the beautiful fabrics resting there. The first layer you touch is a thick, woven woolen blanket. It is heavy, much heavier than any modern blanket, woven on a hand loom with incredible skill and patience. The wool is slightly coarse to the touch, bearing the raw, natural texture of the sheep it came from, yet it is undeniably soft and pliable. You run your hand over the weave, marveling at the rich, deep colours that have been dyed into the yarn. There are earthy, rust-coloured reds achieved from the roots of the madder plant, deep, vibrant forest greens, and dark, charcoal greys. The blanket feels substantial, holding within its threads a remarkable ability to trap heat and block out the cold. Beneath the woolen blankets lies an even more luxurious and comforting layer. The bench is lined with magnificent, incredibly thick animal pelts. There are large, cloud-like sheepskins, their tightly curled wool dyed in natural creamy whites and soft browns. Beside them are heavy, sprawling reindeer hides, the incredibly dense, hollow hairs of the pelt, designed by nature to withstand the most brutal, freezing temperatures on Earth. The furs are piled high, creating a soft, deep, and beautifully textured bed that looks more comfortable than anything you have ever seen. The firelight dances across the surface of the pelts, highlighting the subtle variations in colour and creating a soft, luminous glow over the resting place. The invitation is simply too wonderful to ignore. You have travelled through the modern day, you have walked through the snowy twilight forest, and now you have found the ultimate sanctuary. It is time to rest. You turn slowly, facing the central fire once again, and position yourself gently at the edge of the raised platform. With a slow, deliberate exhale, you allow your body to lower down onto the waiting furs. The sensation of sitting down is incredibly luxurious. The thick, dense layers of the sheepskins and reindeer pelts compress softly beneath your weight, giving way perfectly to the shape of your body. They do not flatten entirely. Rather, the thick wool and hair seem to rise up around you, cradling your hips and your legs in a deeply supportive, unbelievably soft embrace. The physical relief is immediate. You can feel the tension draining out of your lower back, your knees, and your ankles, sinking heavily into the quiet depths of the furs. You lean back slightly, resting your shoulders against the solid, sturdy wooden planks of the outer wall behind you. The wood is surprisingly warm, having absorbed the ambient heat of the room, providing a firm, steady support for your tired muscles. You stretch your legs out straight in front of you, resting your boots gently on the floor near the edge of the platform. You rest your hands lightly in your lap, letting your fingers sink into the incredibly soft, warm texture of a sheepskin resting beside you. You are perfectly positioned. Your back is supported by the warm timber, your body is cradled by the thick, insulating furs, and your face is bathed in the gentle, radiant, golden heat of the long fire stretching out before you. You sit there in absolute stillness, simply absorbing the profound, heavy quiet of the isolated room. The Longhouse is so incredibly peaceful. You close your eyes for a moment, letting your other senses take over entirely. You listen. Deep beneath the comforting roar of the hearth fire, deep beneath the sudden pop of a burning pine knot, you can still hear it. The distant, muffled, rhythmic howling of the blizzard raging outside. The wind sweeps and crashes against the thick turf roof and the heavy oak walls, but it sounds so incredibly far away. It is no longer a threat. It is merely a reminder of the harshness of the world you have left behind, making the profound warmth and absolute safety of this interior space feel all the more miraculous. You breathe in slowly, filling your lungs with the dry, comforting air, thick with the scent of wood smoke, sweet, mead, and dried herbs. You exhale, and with that breath, you let go of the very last remnants of the modern world. There is nowhere else you need to be. There is no rushing here, no ticking clocks, no demands on your time or your energy. You are hidden away in the deep, forgotten corners of history, wrapped in an impenetrable cocoon of firelight, ancient wood, and deep winter silence. You are completely untethered from the worries of your daily life, anchored only by the soft weight of the firs, the steady heat of the glowing embers, and the slow, rhythmic beating of your own perfectly relaxed heart. You have found your sanctuary, and the evening has only just begun. As you rest there, cradled in the deep, luxurious softness of the firs, your eyes begin to slowly travel down the immense length of the hall. The central hearth fire, burning so steadily in its long stone-lined trench, creates a beautiful, shimmering haze of heat that rises constantly toward the dark, vaulted ceiling above. Looking through this gentle, wavering curtain of warm air, the far end of the Longhouse appears slightly softened, painted like a dream in rich, shifting strokes of amber, gold, and deep shadow. There is no urgency in your gaze. You are simply taking in the vast, quiet life of this sanctuary, allowing your attention to drift as slowly and naturally as the wood smoke rising from the embers. Through the gentle distortion of the rising heat, about 20 paces down the length of the earthen floor, you notice a figure. It is an elder, one of the quiet, enduring keepers of this ancient hall. They are seated entirely at peace, completely unbothered by the late hour or the fierce, muffled howling of the blizzard that continues to rage outside the thick walls. The keeper sits on a small, incredibly sturdy three-legged stool carved from a single, solid piece of pale ash wood. The stool is positioned carefully on the edge of the hearth's radiant warmth, close enough to benefit from the brilliant, glowing light of the fire, but far enough back to avoid the intense, searing heat of the white-hot coals. The elder's posture is a testament to a lifetime spent in rhythm with the slow, demanding, but ultimately grounding pace of the seasons. There is a slight, natural forward curve to their shoulders, not born of defeat, but of quiet acceptance, a physical yielding to the heavy, comforting weight of the winter evening. They sit perfectly still for a long moment, breathing in slow, deep, measured rhythms that seem to perfectly match the gentle, pulsing glow of the firelight. Their face, illuminated by the dancing orange and yellow flames, is a map of history. It is lined and weathered, textured like the ancient hand-hewn wooden pillars that support the great roof above you. But these lines are not harsh. They are the beautiful, deep creases of a life fully lived, reflecting an ocean of calm, steady endurance. Draped across the keeper's lap, pooling heavily onto their knees and cascading down toward the earthen floor, is a massive winter cloak. The sheer volume of the fabric is breathtaking. It is a garment built for survival, woven from the thickest, most insulating sheep's wool available. Even from where you sit, resting quietly in the shadows, you can see the dense, magnificent quality of the material. It has been dyed a deep, earthy color, the shade of rich forest moss and dark, shadowed pine needles, a color meant to blend seamlessly into the wild Nordic landscape. The heavy fabric drapes, with a profound, satisfying weight, taking up space like a small, soft mountain resting upon the elder's lap. The edge of the cloak brushes against the dry rush grass and the scattered pine needles on the floor, perfectly still in the draft-free room. As the heat of the fire washes over the dense woolen garment, it gently releases its scent into the already complex, beautiful aroma of the hall. It is the unmistakable, deeply comforting smell of raw, natural lanolin. It is a rich, earthy, slightly waxy fragrance, the scent of the sheep's natural waterproofing that keeps them warm and dry through the most brutal storms. It smells of the wild, open pastures of summer, captured and woven directly into the threads, mingling now with the dry, ancient smell of the wood smoke and the sweet, lingering hint of honey mead. This magnificent cloak, which has likely protected its wearer through countless freezing journeys and bitter snowstorms, has sustained a small, inevitable injury. Along the heavy, lower hem, the thick, Tightly woven fibers have begun to separate and fray, loosened by years of dragging against frozen earth, heavy boots, and thick underbrush. It is not a catastrophic tear, but a small unraveling that requires attention before the harsh winter can pull it further apart. In the modern world, such a task might be seen as an annoyance, a chore to be rushed through or discarded entirely. But here, in the deep, quiet isolation of the Longhouse, it is simply an opportunity. It is a quiet meditation, a slow, methodical task to pass the long hours of the dark evening, a way to honor the materials that keep them alive. The elder reaches down with a slow, deliberate movement, their hand moving toward a small, incredibly soft pouch of dark tanned reindeer leather that rests upon their thigh. The leather is worn smooth, carrying a beautiful, dark patina from years of use. With a gentle pinch of their thumb and forefinger, they loosen the thin leather drawstring that holds the pouch closed. The movement is perfectly unhurried, a quiet ritual of preparation. They reach inside the pouch, their fingers searching softly in the dark interior, before drawing out a single, beautiful tool. It is a needle, but it is not made of the cold, rigid, mass-produced steel of the modern age. It is a needle meticulously carved from a single sliver of dense, white bone. It is an object of profound historical beauty. The needle is much thicker and longer than anything you might find in a contemporary sewing kit, designed specifically to pierce through heavy, unyielding winter hides and dense, woven wool. Over years and years of constant use, being pushed through thick fabrics and held by calloused fingers, the bone has been polished to an incredible, glass-like smoothness. It possesses a slight natural curve, a gentle arc that fits perfectly into the natural motion of the human hand. In the flickering, golden light of the central hearth, the smooth surface of the polished bone catches the firelight, gleaming with a soft, warm, ivory luminescence. Next, the keeper's hand returns to the small leather pouch, withdrawing a perfectly wound ball of thick, hand-spun yarn. This yarn was not purchased. It was created right here, in this very room, perhaps during the long evenings of the previous winter, spun patiently from the raw fleece of the household's flock. It is a natural, undyed shade of deep, charcoal grey, thick and beautifully textured. You can almost feel the raw, coarse strength of it just by looking at it. It is yarn designed for endurance, meant to hold heavy garments together against the relentless pulling of the winter wind. The elder rests the heavy ball of grey yarn on the thick green wool of the cloak, allowing it to settle deeply into the soft folds. They pull a length of the yarn free, unspooling it with a slow, gentle tug. The thick fibres make a faint, microscopic whispering sound as they pull away from the main sphere, a soft rustle that is barely audible beneath the low, steady roar of the fire. The keeper brings the end of the grey yarn up toward their face. With a practiced, incredibly precise motion, they twist the very tip of the frayed woolen fibres between their thumb and forefinger, compressing them tightly together. Holding the smooth, curved bone needle steady in their left hand, they bring the twisted end of the yarn toward the small, perfectly carved oval eye at the top of the needle. The firelight flickers, casting a dancing, shifting glow across their hands. But the elder's focus is absolute, rooted in a lifetime of muscle memory. With a slow, steady, and incredibly calm push, they guide the thick grey yarn through the eye of the bone. It catches for the briefest fraction of a second, the coarse wool gripping the smooth interior of the carved hole, before sliding smoothly through to the other side. The keeper pinches the thread and pulls a long, generous length of it through, letting it fall in a slow, graceful arc to rest against the dark green fabric covering their knees. The preparation is complete. There is no rush to begin the work. The keeper simply rests their hands on the cloak for a moment, letting the warmth of the fire soak into their knuckles. The silence of the room, punctuated only by the breathing of the fire, and the distant, muffled memory of the wind feels heavier now, richer and more profound. Slowly, the elder's left hand moves to the frayed edge of the heavy, moss-green hem. Their fingers, thick and strong, gather the dense fabric, pressing the separated layers back together with a firm, steady pressure. They hold the thick seam perfectly still, feeling the natural tension of the woven wool beneath their fingertips. Then, bringing their right hand forward, they position the sharp, polished tip of the curved bone needle against the underside of the heavy fabric. They pause for just a heartbeat, finding the exact right placement, aligning the needle with the existing microscopic gaps in the woven redzers, and then, with a slow, deliberate, and entirely mindful exertion of strength, they press the needle forward. The heavy, winter-weight wool does not yield instantly. It is dense and proud, designed to block out the harshness of the world, and it offers a firm, stubborn resistance to the bone tool. You can see the slight flexing of the keeper's hand, the subtle tightening of the muscles in their forearm as they apply an even, steady pressure. Slowly, inevitably, the smooth, polished point of the needle begins to separate the thick fibers. There is a microscopic, barely perceptible vibration as the bone pushes its way through the dense weave. And then, with a soft, incredibly satisfying little pop, the tip of the needle breaks through the top layer of the heavy green wool. The keeper shifts their grip, their thick fingers releasing the base of the needle and reaching up to grasp the smooth, curved tip that has just emerged. With a steady, even pull, they draw the rest of the needle up and out of the fabric. Following the needle comes the thick, charcoal grey yarn. As the keeper pulls their hand away in a long, slow, sweeping motion, the coarse woolen thread is dragged through the tight, resistant hole in the fabric. It creates a sound that is profoundly, deeply soothing. It is a slow, rhythmic, whispering friction, a soft, prolonged shh as the heavy fibers slide against one another. It is a sound of mending, a sound of creation, a sound of absolute patience. The long pull continues until the thread is pulled taut, binding the frayed edges of the heavy fabric firmly, together with a new, incredibly strong grey stitch. But the motion is not yet complete. The keeper brings their left hand over the freshly sewn stitch. With a heavy, warm, calloused thumb, they press down firmly on the seam, smoothing the thick wool out flat. The tactile sensation of their rough skin, sliding slowly over the coarse, dense weave of the fabric, is something you can almost feel yourself, a grounding, heavy friction that speaks of safety and care. They press the fabric flat, ensuring the tension is perfect, binding the wool tightly enough to hold, but leaving it loose enough to move and drape naturally. Then, the right hand returns to the underside of the hem. The smooth tip of the bone needle is positioned once more, just a fraction of an inch further down the frayed edge. The steady pressure is applied. The wool resists, then yields. The soft, satisfying pop of the needle breaking through, the shift of the grip, the long, slow, graceful pull of the arm, the mesmerizing, whispering friction of the heavy grey yarn sliding through the dense green wool, the firm, heavy press of the calloused thumb smoothing the seam flat. Over and over again, the elder repeats this process, stitch by slow stitch. It is a microscopic journey along the edge of the heavy garment, moving at a pace that the modern world has entirely forgotten. There is no desire to finish quickly. There is no destination to reach. The act of mending is, in itself, the entire purpose of the moment. The rhythm they establish is incredibly hypnotic. It is a slow, steady metronome of quiet survival. The press, the push, the pull, the smooth. The press, the push, the pull, the smooth. You watch from your comfortable resting place in the shadows, your eyes heavy, your body completely relaxed, feeling the incredible, soothing power of this repetitive, ancient action. With every single stitch the keeper makes, it feels as though they are not just mending the heavy green cloak, but they are slowly, methodically stitching the very fabric of the quiet evening together, binding the warmth of the room to the safety of the walls, and anchoring your own mind to the profound peace of the present moment. The firelight catches the rhythmic movement of the keeper's hand, throwing a large, soft, dancing shadow against the magnificent carved wooden pillar behind them. The shadow moves in a slow, continuous loop, rising and falling like the gentle, deep breaths of a sleeping giant. The sound of the rough yarn pulling through the heavy wool becomes a mantra, a soft, constant reassurance beneath the low, steady roaring whisper of the central hearth. Time loses all its sharp edges here. It stretches and expands, becoming as soft and thick as the reindeer furs beneath you. You could watch this slow, beautiful process for hours, completely captivated by the simple, enduring elegance of the mundane chore. After a long while, the keeper's hands come to a gentle stop. The rhythm ceases, not out of fatigue, but out of a mindful awareness of their surroundings. They leave the bone needle resting securely in the thick green fabric, the charcoal yarn pulled comfortably taut. With a slow, groaning shift of their weight, they lean forward on the small ash wood stool. Resting on the packed earth near the edge of the long fire pit is a sturdy, fire-hardened wooden pole, entirely blackened and smoothed at one end from years of being thrust into the heart of the flames. The keeper reaches out a heavy hand and grasps the cool, unburned end of the pole. They lift it with a slow, deliberate movement, the heavy wood feeling incredibly natural and familiar in their grip. They lean toward the massive, glowing trench of the hearth. In the center of the fire, a large, thick log of ancient, seasoned oak has burned through its center, threatening to roll outward away from the intense heat of the glowing coals. The keeper extends the blackened pole, pressing its blunt end against the heavy, smouldering side of the oak log. With a firm, steady push, they nudge the massive piece of wood. It does not move easily, resisting with its own heavy, dense weight, but under the keeper's patient strength, it finally shifts. The log rolls heavily backward, collapsing inward into the deep, blindingly white-hot center of the ember bed. The sound it makes is a deep, muffled, incredibly satisfying crump as the heavy wood settles into the deep bed of ash and glowing coals. This sudden movement disturbs the intense heat of the hearth, instantly releasing a magnificent, chaotic, and beautiful response from the fire. A sudden, sharp hiss echoes through the Longhouse as a hidden pocket of dried sap inside the oak is exposed to the extreme heat, boiling and turning to sweet-smelling steam in a fraction of a second. Accompanying the hiss is a sudden, breathtaking upward rush of sparks. Thousands of tiny, brilliant, glowing embers are launched into the air, swirling and dancing upward in a chaotic, beautiful column of light. They are a brilliant, vivid orange, contrasting sharply against the dark, heavy soot of the vaulted ceiling above. The keeper lowers the wooden pole, resting its blackened tip back against the earthen floor. They do not immediately return to their sewing. Instead, they lean back slightly, resting their forearms against the heavy green wool of the cloak, and simply tilt their head upward. They watch the sparks. You watch them too. The tiny, glowing embers rise on the powerful column of the heat draft, floating lazily higher and higher into the cavernous space of the roof. As they rise, you can see them slowly cooling, transitioning from a blinding, vibrant orange to a softer, deeper cherry red, and finally gently fading away into tiny, invisible specks of grey ash just as they reach the open, rectangular smoke holes near the very peak of the roof. They are pulled out into the freezing, invisible chaos of the blizzard, extinguished instantly by the cold, returning to the wild dark. The keeper watches the last spark fade, their weathered face calm, their breathing entirely undisturbed. The fire settles back into its slow, constant, roaring whisper, the newly positioned oak log already beginning to glow with a fresh, radiant heat that washes over the room in a thick, invisible wave. The keeper lowers their head. They reach out their calloused hand, finding the smooth, polished curve of the bone needle exactly where they left it, resting securely against the thick, dark, mossy green of the winter cloak. They adjust their grip, their thumb pressing against the dense fabric, finding the exact point where the frayed edge still waits to be bound. The right hand brings the needle to the underside of the hem. The steady pressure is applied. The wool resists, then gives way. The soft, quiet pop, the long, sweeping pull of the arm, the mesmerizing, whispering friction of the charcoal yarn sliding through the heavy wool, the slow, firm press of the calloused thumb. The rhythm resumes. The hypnotic, steady, microscopic journey along the edge of the fabric continues. The Longhouse remains an impenetrable fortress of warmth, light and total peace, filled only with the scent of wood smoke and lanolin, the deep heat of the ancient fire, and the slow, beautiful sound of a broken thing being patiently, quietly, and perfectly made whole again. The rhythm continues for a long, beautiful stretch of time, entirely uninterrupted by the rush of the modern world. There is only the mesmerizing, whispering friction of the charcoal sliding through the heavy wool and the slow, firm press of the calloused thumb. But all tasks, no matter how patiently undertaken, must eventually come to their natural close. The keeper's hand moves along the frayed edge, steadily closing the gap, binding the broken pieces together with an enduring strength until the bone needle reaches the very end of the tier. The thick, moss-green fabric of the heavy winter cloak is whole once again. It is a quiet victory, uncelebrated by anything other than the profound, silent satisfaction of a necessary job completely and perfectly finished. To secure the long evening's work, the elder brings the curved bone needle through the dense wool one final time, but they do not pull the grey yarn entirely taut. Instead, they leave a small, loose loop resting on the surface of the fabric. With a practiced, incredibly precise motion, they guide the polished tip of the bone needle back through this small woolen circle. Slowly, deliberately, they pull the thread tight. You can almost hear the tiny, microscopic creak of the raw fibers binding against one another as the knot is formed. It is pulled flush against the heavy hem, locking the long row of perfect, even stitches permanently into place. From the small wooden bench beside their stool, the keeper picks up a small, beautifully forged pair of iron shears. The metal is dark, completely matte, and heavy in the hand. They position the sharp, angled blades close to the newly formed knot. With a gentle, effortless squeeze of their thick fingers, the two iron blades meet. There is a soft, incredibly satisfying snip that echoes faintly in the quiet space. The remaining length of the thick grey yarn falls away, severing the connection between the mended cloak and the spool. The keeper lowers the iron shears, resting them quietly back upon the wooden bench. They take the smooth carved bone needle and slip it securely into the loose weave of the remaining yarn, ensuring it will not be lost. Then, picking up the small heavy ball of charcoal thread, they begin to slowly wind the loose end around the sphere. The motion is smooth and circular, the coarse wool passing lightly over the rough skin of their thumb until the ball is neat and tidy once more. Reaching back down to their thigh, they pick up the small pouch of dark tanned reindeer leather. They loosen the thin leather drawstring and gently slide the ball of yarn and the bone needle back into the dark interior. The soft leather collapses around the tools, protecting them for the next time they are needed. The keeper pulls the thin strings tight, securing the pouch, and ties a simple, loose knot. The soft rustle of the leather settling against itself is a deeply comforting sound, a quiet signal that the work of the day has truly and finally ended. Now, the keeper turns their attention entirely to the massive, moss-green winter cloak resting heavy across their lap. They run their broad, calloused hands slowly over the length of the newly mended seam. They press their palms flat against the thick wool, feeling the unbroken strength of the edge, ensuring that the garment is perfectly ready to face the brutal cold of the outside world whenever it is next required. The tactile friction of their hands, smoothing the raw wool, releases a final, subtle bloom of that earthy, waxy lanolin scent into the warm air. With a slow, deliberate heave, the keeper shifts their weight on the three-legged ashwood stool. They take hold of the heavy fabric near the shoulders of the cloak, gripping the dense material tightly. They lift the massive garment. The sheer volume and weight of the wool are evident in the way it moves, falling in thick, heavy folds toward the earthen floor. It does not drape like modern cloth. It holds its shape with a proud, insulating stiffness, a heavy barrier designed to trap the heat of the human body against the fury of the Nordic winds. The keeper spreads the wide cloak fully across their lap, finding the edges. Slowly, they fold the left side of the heavy wool completely over the right, bringing the edges perfectly together. They lean forward, pressing their forearms down across the surface of the folded fabric to smooth out the bulk, pressing out any trapped air from between the thick layers. Then, they fold the long, heavy hem up toward the shoulders, halving the length of the garment. Again, they press it flat, their movements methodical, unhurried, treating the cloak with the profound respect that a life-saving tool so rightfully deserves. They fold it one last time, bringing the edges together to form a thick, incredibly dense, rectangular block of deep green wool. The folded cloak now looks like a heavy, soft cushion, thick enough to sleep upon. The keeper rests their hands on top of the folded wool for a moment, letting their breathing synchronize with the slow, pulsing glow of the firelight. With a low, quiet groan that speaks of a long life lived close to the earth, the elder slowly stands up from the ashwood stool. The movement is stiff but steady. They gather the heavy, folded block of wool into their arms, holding it securely against their chest. The stool lets out a faint, microscopic creak of relief as the weight is lifted from it, settling slightly on the packed earthen floor. The keeper turns away from the radiant heat of the central hearth, walking slowly toward the outer edge of the Longhouse hall. Their thick leather boots move silently over the scattered pine needles and rush grass. They approach a large, incredibly sturdy wooden chest, resting against the outer wall, situated just past the edge of the elevated sleeping platforms. The chest is a masterpiece of ancient carpentry, built from thick planks of solid wood, bound at the corners with dark hammered iron brackets. The keeper rests the heavy block of wool against their side and reaches out with their free hand. They grasp the heavy iron ring on the lid of the chest and pull upward. The lid is exceptionally heavy, but the keeper lifts it with a smooth, practiced ease. The iron hinges, thick and ancient, let out a low, deep, metallic groan that reverberates softly through the shadows of the hall. As the lid opens, a new, entirely distinct fragrance is released into the warm air of the room. It is the sharp, incredibly clean, and beautifully resonant scent of aged cedar heartwood. It is a deep, preserving aroma, a fragrance that speaks of the deep, untouched forest. It acts as a natural guardian, protecting the precious woolen garments stored within from the dampness of the winter and the threat of damage. This rich, woody scent rises up, instantly mingling with the lingering notes of the raw lanolin, the sweet honey mead, and the ever-present, comforting foundation of the dry wood smoke. The inside of the cedar chest is deep and dark, already holding several other carefully folded blankets and winter furs. The keeper leans forward, lowering the heavy moss-green cloak into the chest. They place it gently atop the other garments, adjusting the corners so that it rests perfectly flat. They pause for a moment, their hand lingering on the soft wool, before they slowly withdraw their arm. They take hold of the heavy iron ring on the lid once more and guide it downward. They do not let it fall, but lower it with a slow, deliberate care. The thick wooden lid meets the base of the chest with a deep, heavy, resonant thud. It is a sound of finality, a sound of profound security. The garments are packed away, the chores are finished. The evening's labour is entirely complete. The keeper turns and begins a slow, quiet walk down the length of the hall, moving away from the hearth and disappearing gently into the deeper shadows near the far end of the Longhouse, finding their own place of well-earned rest. You are left alone, resting perfectly still on the thick, luxurious reindeer furs, a quiet observer to the beautiful shifting atmosphere of the room. As the work has come to an end, so too has the brilliant, leaping intensity of the central fire. The massive ancient oak logs that have been burning steadily all evening have finally given their last great offering of bright flame. The structure of the wood has broken down, collapsing inward upon itself with a series of soft, muffled crunches that send tiny, lazy flurries of grey ash floating upward into the dark. The fire transitions from a vibrant, dancing display of yellow and orange ribbons into a deep, magnificent, intensely glowing bed of red coals. This is the true heart of the winter fire. The leaping flames are beautiful, but they consume their fuel quickly. It is the deep, thick bed of embers that provides the enduring, life-sustaining heat that will last throughout the long, dark hours of the freezing night. With the flames subsiding, the quality of the light in the cavernous Longhouse begins to change dramatically. The bright, flickering golden glow that illuminated the rafters earlier in the evening slowly softens and dims. The room is now bathed in a rich, deeply saturated, pulsing crimson light. It is a heavier light, a sleepy, hypnotic glow that paints the carved wooden pillars and the earthen floor in shades of dark velvet and bruised purple. As the light grows dimmer, the shadows in the Longhouse begin to stretch and lengthen. They creep slowly out from the corners of the hall, sliding silently across the floor and stretching up the tall, carved pillars. The shadows are not frightening. They are deeply comforting. They are the visual manifestation of the night, coming to blanket the room in a soft, heavy peace. The intricate knotwork and the carved serpents on the wooden columns are thrown into deep relief, their shapes softening and blurring in the dim red light, making the wood look almost as soft as the furs beneath you. The heat radiating from the great trench of coals is no longer a searing, bright wall, but a dense, heavy, invisible blanket that settles evenly over the entire room. It presses gently against your face and your shoulders, a perfect, steady warmth that completely relaxes the very last remnants of tension hiding in your muscles. As the visual noise of the leaping flames dies away, the heavy, settling silence of the Longhouse becomes even more profound. The room feels incredibly still, anchored firmly to the frozen earth beneath it, but the silence is not empty. It is textured. It is alive. Just a few paces away, resting on the hard-packed earth, near the comforting warmth of the glowing embers, is a shape you had not noticed in the brighter light. It is an enormous, wire-haired hound. The dog is lying perfectly flat on its side, its long legs stretched out loosely toward the hearth, soaking in the magnificent heat. Its thick, coarse coat is a mixture of dark grey and brindle, blending perfectly into the shadows of the floor. The hound is deeply, completely asleep. One slow, heavy rise and fall of its large rib cage. With every exhale, it lets out a soft, low, rhythmic sigh, a sound of absolute, unquestionable contentment. Occasionally, one of its large, padded paws twitches ever so slightly, chasing some phantom rabbit through the snowy fields of a dream. Its ears, long and relaxed, are draped softly over its closed eyes. The dog is a symbol of perfect trust. It knows, with an absolute primal certainty, that it is safe here. The walls are thick, the pack is gathered, the fire is hot, and the storm outside cannot reach them. The sound of its deep, slow breathing mingles beautifully with the low, pulsing heat of the coals, creating a lullaby of profound, sleepy peace. Nearby, on a small, heavy wooden table, sits a simple clay dish holding the remnants of a thick, handmade beeswax candle. It was snuffed out some time ago, perhaps by the keeper as they moved to their rest. A tiny, faint ribbon of pale white smoke still twists lazily upward from the blackened wick, barely visible in the dim red light. But the scent of it is beautiful. It is the subtle, incredibly sweet aroma of melted natural wax, touched with the faint, sugary memory of wild summer honey and undercut by the sharp, clean smell of the burnt cotton wick. It is a small, domestic fragrance that perfectly complements the heavy, ancient smell of the wood smoke and the sleeping earth. Everything in the Longhouse is winding down. The world is slowing to a total, complete halt. It is a profound thing, friend, to sit in the dark and watch a fire burn down to its embers. We spend so much of our waking lives fearing the winter. We look at the dark clouds, we feel the biting wind, and we see the heavy, falling snow as an adversary, as something to be fought against, shoveled away, and defeated. We rush to our destinations, desperate to escape the cold, entirely focused on the inconvenience of the storm. But out here, in the deep, untouched corners of the past, the winter is understood differently. The blizzard that rages outside these thick, wooden walls is not an enemy. It is a necessary, beautiful force of nature. Think of the snow not as a freezing hazard, but as an incredibly heavy, insulating blanket. It falls from the sky to cover the exhausted earth, wrapping the trees, the fields and the soil in a layer of profound, quiet protection. It is nature's way of forcing the world to stop. It demands that the endless growth and the frantic energy of the summer finally cease. It is a command to rest, and humanity, for thousands upon thousands of years, has listened to that command. When the dark comes early and the snow piles high against the door, there is simply nothing left that can be done outside. The fields cannot be worked, the journeys cannot be made. The modern illusion that we must always be productive is completely shattered by the sheer, undeniable reality of the deep winter night. Instead, our ancestors did exactly what you are doing right now. They came inside. They pulled the heavy oak doors shut, sealing out the wind and the cold. They built a fire in the center of their sanctuary, and they gathered around it. They sat in the dim, golden light, surrounded by the smell of wood smoke and the soft, breathing presence of their companions and their hounds. They mended their clothes, they told their stories, or they simply sat in the quiet, absorbing the heat, entirely present in the moment. There is an unbroken chain of human experience, stretching back through the millennia, connecting you directly to the profound peace of this ancient room. Every time you seek out the warmth of a heavy blanket, every time you find comfort in the soft glow of a low light, you are echoing the exact same instinct that built this magnificent longhouse. The desire for safety, for warmth, and for quiet isolation is woven directly into the fabric of who you are. You do not need to earn your rest tonight. The snow is falling heavily outside your window, in the world of the present and in the world of the past. The earth is sleeping beneath its heavy white blanket. The fire is tended. The doors are locked. The work is finished. There is absolutely no reason for you to carry the weight of the day any longer. The crimson glow of the ember bed continues to pulse softly, a slow, steady heartbeat in the center of the dark hall. The shadows have fully settled into the corners, wrapping the immense room in a cocoon of deep, heavy night. The Longhouse has become a place of pure, uninterrupted stillness. The muffled, distant hum of the blizzard outside has faded into a gentle, rhythmic white noise, a sound that only serves to deepen the absolute silence within. It is time, friend, to let the night completely take over. It is time to yield to the beautiful, ancient gravity of deep winter sleep. deep in the shadows of the immense hall, far away from the pulsing crimson glow of the central hearth, the elder keeper of the Longhouse reaches their own place of rest. The sleeping quarters are not separate rooms, but beautifully constructed, recessed alcoves built directly into the incredibly thick, structural walls of the building. This design is a masterpiece of ancient engineering, utilizing the massive mass of the earth and the timber to create a perfectly insulated pocket that captures and holds the radiant heat of the central fire. As the keeper steps slowly toward their alcove, the dry rush grass on the earthen floor gives way to a smooth, beautifully polished wooden platform, elevated a few inches above the ground to ensure that no stray creeping draft can ever reach them while they sleep. The keeper pauses at the edge of the platform. With slow, deliberate, and practiced movements, they reach down and begin to unfasten their heavy leather winter boots. The leather is thick and stiff from years of use in the snow, but the keeper's hands know the knots by heart. There is a soft, muted sliding sound as the heavy boots are pulled free, placed neatly side by side on the earthen floor beneath the edge of the platform. The release of the heavy footwear brings an immediate, visible relaxation to the keeper's posture. They stand for a moment in their thick woolen socks, feeling the solid, grounding support of the wooden planks beneath their feet, feeling the deeply satisfying sensation of the long, arduous day finally falling away from their physical form. They turn toward the bed itself. It is a magnificent structure, essentially a large, sturdy wooden box built from thick, hand-hewn planks of dark oak. The sides of the bed are raised, designed specifically to hold the incredible volume of insulating materials needed to guarantee warmth through the freezing Nordic night. The construction is solid, unmoving, and deeply permanent. It looks less like a modern piece of furniture and more like a small, beautifully carved wooden ship designed to carry its occupants safely across the vast, dark ocean of the winter night. The wood has been polished smooth by generations of use, the edges rounded and softened by countless hands resting against them. Inside this sturdy wooden frame lies a mattress completely unlike anything in our modern world, yet it is a marvel of natural comfort. The foundation of the bed is built upon a thick, springy layer of woven birch twigs, creating a flexible, supportive base that keeps the sleeper elevated and allows the air to circulate. Above this lies a deep, incredibly generous layer of dried sphagnum moss and wild autumn heather. The keeper had gathered this moss during the late, golden days of summer, drying it meticulously in the sun until it was perfectly crisp and clean. Now, packed tightly into the wooden frame, it forms a mattress that is extraordinarily soft, deeply contoured, and profoundly insulating. As the keeper reaches out and presses a heavy hand against the surface of the bed, the dry moss and heather compress, with a soft, incredibly satisfying crunch. The movement releases a beautiful, subtle fragrance into the small alcove. It is the deep, earthy smell of the wild moors in late summer, a dry, herbal, and slightly sweet scent that speaks of sun-baked earth and the quiet resilience of nature. It is a smell that completely counters the freezing, icy reality of the blizzard outside, bringing the warmth and the memory of the summer directly into the sleeping space. Over the thick mound of moss, the bed is layered with a rare and deeply treasured textile. It is a large, beautifully woven sheet of raw, unbleached linen. The creation of this single sheet would have taken weeks, perhaps months, of incredibly patient labor, from the cultivation of the flax to the spinning of the thread and the endless, rhythmic working of the hand loom. The fabric is slightly coarse to the touch, carrying the natural, uneven texture of the raw plant fibers, but it is incredibly durable and deeply breathable. It provides a clean, smooth barrier over the natural materials of the mattress, creating a resting place that is completely grounded in the earth, yet refined by human hands. With a slow, heavy, groaning sigh that mirrors the settling of the ancient timber walls, the keeper lowers themselves onto the bed. The sensation is one of immediate, profound yielding. The thick layers of moss and heather give way beneath their weight, compressing perfectly to support the natural curves of their tired back, their heavy hips, and their weary shoulders. The bed does not bounce or shift, it simply absorbs them, holding them in a firm, incredibly supportive embrace. The keeper stretches their legs out straight, feeling the tension of the day draining rapidly from their calves and their knees, sinking deep down into the dried moss. Now comes the final, most crucial step of the evening routine. Resting at the foot of the bed, piled high and waiting, are the winter furs. These are not decorative blankets. They are the ultimate, life-saving tools of the Nordic winter. The keeper reaches down, their thick hands grasping the edges of the heavy pelts. Slowly, with a deep, sweeping pull, they draw the massive weight of the furs up and over their body. The sound of the furs moving is incredible. It is a deep, muffled rustle, a soft, heavy whisper of millions of dense, hollow hairs sliding against one another. The first layer to settle over the keeper is a vast, beautifully cured reindeer hide. The hide is incredibly thick, specifically evolved by nature to trap heat and block out the most extreme freezing temperatures on the planet. Over the reindeer hide goes a layer of enormous cloud-like sheepskins, the raw wool facing inward, pressing softly against the linen sheet and trapping the ambient heat of the longhouse close to the body. The sheer physical weight of these combined layers is immense. It is a heavy, grounding, unbelievable pressure that presses down upon the keeper from their shoulders all the way to their toes. In the modern world we might find such weight restrictive, but here, in the heart of the winter storm, that weight is the ultimate physical manifestation of safety. It is a pressure that instantly commands the nervous system to calm down. It tells the body that it is completely protected, completely insulated, and that there is absolutely no need to remain alert. Under the massive, comforting crush of the heavy furs, the keeper's breathing instantly deepens, slowing down into a long, rhythmic, and perfectly relaxed cadence. The keeper lies perfectly still, their arms resting comfortably at their sides, under the heavy blankets, their head supported by a small, soft bundle of woven wool. They do not close their eyes immediately. Instead, they take a few long, quiet moments to simply look out from the deep shadows of their alcove, observing the cavernous space of the longhouse one last time. The room is completely given over to the night. The brilliant, leaping flames of the evening have entirely vanished, leaving behind only the deep, magnificent, pulsing crimson glow of the central ember bed. The long, stone-lined trench looks like a river of slow-moving lava, casting a dim, hypnotic velvet red light that barely reaches the high, soot-blackened rafters. The heavy shadows have conquered the hall, wrapping around the beautifully carved wooden pillars, softening their intricate knotwork until they look like the dark, sleeping trunks of ancient forest trees. The deep, heavy silence of the longhouse is profoundly beautiful. Beneath the silence, the small, comforting sounds of life continue. The keeper listens to the incredibly slow, deep, rhythmic breathing of the large, wire-haired hound, still sleeping flat on its side, near the warmth of the hearth. Every few minutes, the glowing coals shift and settle in the white ash with a tiny, muted clink or a soft, dusty sigh, and far, far away, entirely defeated by the massive earth-packed walls and the heavy roof, the blizzard continues to rage. The wind howls and batters against the timber, but it sounds like a ghost, a completely powerless force that can never, ever reach them. The warmth inside the alcove is incredible, while the air resting against the keeper's face is cool and remarkably fresh, perfectly clear for breathing. The air trapped beneath the mountain of heavy furs is radiating with a deep, profound, restorative heat. The contrast is deeply wonderful, keeping the mind clear while the body completely surrenders to the slumber. The keeper takes one final, slow, incredibly deep breath, filling their lungs with the ancient, beautiful scent of the room. The rich, earthy aroma of the dried moss, the heavy, comforting scent of raw sheep's wool and lanolin, the sweet, lingering memory of the beeswax candle and the honey mead, and above all, the dry, preserving, completely safe scent of the ancient wood smoke. As they exhale, a long, quiet sigh escapes their lips. The tension in their jaw releases. The tiny muscles around their eyes soften, and slowly, beautifully, the keeper allows their heavy eyelids to close, giving themselves over entirely to the deep, protective embrace of the winter night. As the keeper falls into a profound, heavy sleep, the camera of your mind begins to slowly, gently pull away. You find yourself drifting upward, weightless and free, rising slowly from your comfortable place in the shadows. You float upward through the dense, warm air of the Longhouse, rising past the beautifully carved wooden pillars, up toward the high, vaulted ceiling. You drift past the massive, soot-blackened oak crossbeams, feeling the lingering warmth of the trapped smoke. And finally, you drift gently out through the small, rectangular smoke hole at the very peak of the roof. Instantly, you are outside, suspended high above the ancient Nordic forest. But you feel no cold. You are entirely protected, a silent, invisible observer floating in the deep blue twilight. You look down, and you see the Longhouse from above. It is a magnificent, solitary structure, an incredibly long, low mound, completely covered in a thick, insulating blanket of pure white snow. The only sign of life within is a tiny, beautiful ribbon of pale smoke rising from the roof, instantly snatched away by the wild, dancing wind of the blizzard. It is a tiny, glowing spark of humanity, entirely safe, entirely warm, completely hidden within the vast, freezing wilderness. As you watch the snow falling over the ancient structure, the edges of the world begin to soften once again. The deep, bruised indigo of the winter sky, the towering silhouettes of the evergreen trees, and the howling of the ancient wind all begin to lose their sharp focus. They dissolve, very slowly, back into that thick, comforting, and peaceful grey mist. The mist swirls around you in a slow, hypnotic circle, gently washing away the images of the past. The ancient world is sleeping, and it is time for you to return to your own. You float gently through the quiet grey void, moving slowly forward through time. The transition is seamless, completely free of any jarring movement or sudden shifts. Slowly, the thick grey mist begins to thin out. The cool, crisp air of the ancient forest fades, replaced by the perfectly still, climate-controlled, familiar air of your own present moment. The heavy, crushing weight of the reindeer pelts and the sheepskins slowly lifts away, seamlessly transitioning into the soft, familiar, and perfectly weighted pressure of your own modern blankets, your own soft duvet, and your own cotton sheets. The deep, earthy mattress of dried moss and heather dissolves, transforming back into the incredibly supportive, perfectly contoured mattress beneath you right now. You are back. You are lying in your own bed. The room around you is perfectly dark, perfectly quiet, and perfectly still. The blizzard of the Nordic forest is gone, and so is the rush and the noise of the modern day you left behind. There is only the peace of this present moment and the soft, steady rhythm of your own breathing. Hello again, friend. I am so glad that we could take this journey together tonight. As you lie there, feeling the incredibly soft fabric of your pillowcase against your cheek, and feeling the heavy, comforting weight of your blankets pressing down over your shoulders, I want you to realize something truly profound. The world has changed so much since the days of the ancient Longhouse. Our tools are different, our homes are different, and the speed at which we live our lives would be completely unrecognizable to the people who built those massive wooden halls. But fundamentally, deeply, at the very core of what makes us human, we have not changed at all. The storms we face today might look different. Instead of blinding snow and freezing winds, you face the constant, relentless blizzard of modern expectations, endless responsibilities, glowing screens, and the heavy weight of tomorrow's to-do list. It can feel like a storm that never truly ends. But your response to that storm, your deep, primal need to find a place of absolute safety, is exactly the same as the elder keeper seeking the warmth of the central hearth. When you walked into your bedroom tonight, when you closed the door behind you and heard the soft, satisfying click of the latch, you were doing the exact same thing as pulling that heavy, iron-bound oak door shut against the Nordic wind. You were sealing the storm outside. You were claiming this space, this quiet, dark room, as your impenetrable sanctuary. Your bed is your longhouse. It is a place where the demands of the outside world simply have no power. The emails, the worries, the rushing, the noise, they are all outside the walls. They are the muffled, distant howling of a wind that cannot touch you here. In this room, in this exact moment, you are completely, undeniably safe. The fire is tended, the doors are locked. The long work of the day is entirely finished. There is nothing left for you to do but to yield to the night. So, let us prepare your body for that final, beautiful surrender. We will do this very slowly. There is no rush. We have all the time in the world. I want you to bring your attention back down to your feet. Feel them resting heavily against the mattress. If there is any lingering tension in your toes or your ankles, simply let it go. Imagine that tension dissolving into nothingness, melting away like a single snowflake, landing on a warm, glowing ember. Let that profound, heavy relaxation travel slowly upward. Feel it moving into your calves, your knees, and your thighs. Your legs are incredibly heavy now. They feel like they are made of solid, warm earth, sinking deeper and deeper into the soft support of your bed. Let that heaviness rise into your hips, completely relaxing the muscles of your lower back. You are being held. You do not need to support yourself anymore. Let the mattress take all of your weight. Bring your awareness to your breathing. Notice how perfectly slow, deep, and rhythmic it has become. With every slow inhale, you are drawing in the clean, quiet, peaceful air of your sanctuary. And with every long, slow exhale, you are sinking deeper into the mattress. Inhale peace. Exhale the day. Inhale the stillness. Exhale the storm. Let that wave of relaxation wash over your chest and your shoulders. Your shoulders are so heavy. Let them drop completely flat against the bed. Release the muscles in your neck. Let the tension drain down your arms, flowing smoothly past your elbows, through your wrists, and finally slipping out through your fingertips. Your hands are perfectly still, resting gently beside you, entirely unburdened. Finally, bring your focus up to your face. This is where we hold so much of our unspoken worry. I want you to intentionally unclench your jaw, create a tiny space between your teeth. Let your tongue fall away from the roof of your mouth, resting softly. Smooth out the tiny muscles around your eyes. Those muscles that have been working so hard all day long. Let your forehead become perfectly smooth and completely relaxed. If your eyes are not already closed, please close them now. Let the deep, comforting darkness of the room wash over your vision. It is a beautiful, velvet dark. It is not empty. It is full of rest, full of peace, and full of quiet healing. As you lie there, perfectly relaxed, perfectly safe, I want you to notice the smell of the air in your room. It is clean, cool, and incredibly fresh. The rich, ancient, heavy scent of the wood smoke, the dry moss, and the sweet honey mead from the Longhouse are slowly, gently fading away. They are dissolving into the background, becoming a soft phantom memory that brings a final smile to your mind. The air you are breathing now is pure, silent, and incredibly calming. There is nowhere else you need to be. There is absolutely nothing else you need to do. The past has been put to rest. The present moment is perfectly still. And tomorrow is a distant land that does not require your attention right now. You are completely safe. You are completely warm. You are entirely protected. Allow yourself to drift now. Let your mind untether from the waking world, floating gently away, like a spark rising from the glowing embers, spiraling upward into the vast, quiet night. Drift deeper and deeper into the heavy, beautiful gravity of the dark. Sink into the mattress, let the blankets hold you. Give yourself over entirely to the profound, restoring power of deep, uninterrupted sleep. You have done enough today, friend. You have been enough. It is time to rest. Drift away. Drift into the quiet. Sleep well.